and there's a lot of nuances to appraisals and things that appraisers can't do. And I think they're missing the boat because they're held to such strict guidelines in what they have to do. And it's killing deals and killing values when you have two people that want to purchase and sell a property at a value, you know? Mm-hmm. Why do you have to make it complicated?
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt, that is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about appraisers, final walkthroughs, and July's hottest housing market. Shawn, Thursday, July 10th. It's been a minute. How you been?
Yeah, it's been a minute. Matt, I feel like we have an announcement to make. Why we haven't been here. The reason we have not been at this show is because Matt had a major life announcement, and congratulations, Matt.
I am a father. I am a father to a beautiful little daughter who is perfect in every single way, even when she's screaming at 3 a.m. And now I'm a part of the Parents Club, and I wouldn't have it any other way. We are super stoked and so excited to have this precious little nugget.
Yeah, congratulations, Matt. Now you know. Now you're understanding why I'm tired all the time.
Now it's real.
It's real,
now
dude.
It's like, okay, time to get on my horse and start kicking it up a notch.
Yeah, it kicks you in the butt. And when you have that first kid, it's like, holy cow, I haven't slept. I haven't had a full night's sleep. I'll get 3 hours here, 4 hours here, 2 hours here. It's really rough for the first couple of weeks, and then they get older and you still don't sleep. So
maybe in like 18 years I'll get like
now
a full night of sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of ramped down for like the week that we were in the hospital. Now I've been ramping back up. I'm still, calling, texting, even putting on listings, having, experiences with buyers and sellers and walkthroughs and whatnot. But let's kind of recap, Shawn. How have your listings gone in the past couple of weeks? We're, well into the summer market at this point.
Yeah, we're well into the summer market. And the thing is, if you look at the inventory, it's definitely higher for Arlington, but we've been saying that for months, and it hasn't really changed much. I don't see a big spike in inventory.
Can we give a context here? Let me pull up while you're talking. Let me pull up Smart Charts. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll throw up the chart for inventory for Arlington County, because I think when people say higher inventory, that can mean many different things.
Yeah.
And I think what we'll see is that inventory is higher. There are slightly fewer contracts, but it's not some huge disparity. Maybe in like the February, March, April timeframe, things were coming on the market and not selling as quickly. But now we've kind of leveled off a little bit, and I think the charts will reflect that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at those numbers. But, in my recollection and looking at those numbers on Monday, they were up slightly. In context.
Compared to what?
Compared to our numbers, normally.
And are you looking at single-family houses, townhouses, condos, or the entire market?
I look at the entire market, but I look at each segment as well. And it's been the same pretty much for the last 3 months, I would say. We're probably double inventory than we're normally used to, but this is a hyper sellers market in our area. It is always like sellers, making bank and doing well. Now it's still a seller's market. I feel like, it hasn't transitioned over to a buyer's market in segments. We are starting to see this summer slowdown, but my listings are selling. And that's what I want to preface is like, if you price it right, you make it look right, you market it well, you will sell. Even in the slower months.
Yes, but the last 3 buyers I have got under contract, that bought a house, non-multiple offer scenarios, price drops, and offer accepted under the asking price.
Yeah, and that's all right. So, but the key is it horrible where you're taking a dive at these people and you're able to get this listing way under ask? No, I mean it's still reasonably priced. You're getting a reasonable amount of money, and it's selling reasonably quickly. And that's what I want to say is like we're still in 30 to 45 day territory where things are selling in that time frame. And that's not a bad market. And compared to everybody else in the United States, that's very short. So I I think that, my last listing in the Continental went under contract in 7 days. I got my McLean listing at $2.8 million under contract after about 45 days. That's a good time frame. I mean, that's not a super long time frame, especially for a $2.8 million property. So that's two different sides of the market at $400,000 and $2.8 million. So, I do have one listing on the market. Everything else is under contract. And that one listing had an offer that first weekend, but they wanted really long contingency timeframes because of the holidays. And we're just like, no. And we kind of let it. It didn't work out. But
So to give you an idea, the past 3 months, April, May, June, all over 400 active listings in Arlington County. We haven't hit 400 active listings for a certain month dating back to October 2022. So it certainly has happened, and obviously, mortgage rates and many other factors have played a role. But in the past, what is that, 3 years now, we just haven't seen 400. Inventory topped out at like 320 last year, and maybe call it 350 the year before. So we are up slightly from years past.
So it's not bad. I mean, that's the thing, is that everybody's like, oh, Lamar, this is, we have a typical cycle when we go into the summer months. We were wondering if the summer would progress into like a late spring market because we didn't see that early spring market hit. The
issue is that the pendings are just not at the same level. They're at a similar level as 2024, as 2023, and then a little bit under 2022. So you just have more inventory, same buyer activity, and that'll ultimately lead to a few extra price drops, a few more properties on the market, but not this like sky is falling scenario.
Yeah, and the thing is, you have to prep these listings. I just had somebody call me yesterday. Shawn, I talked to you a couple months ago. I had somebody renovate the property, and I used the realtor that helped me renovate the property, and it didn't sell. Can you help me? And so I looked at the listing. I'm like, yeah, I can help you. I know what you got to do, right? And so like this is expertise in this area, knowing what you have to do to get it sold. And it was priced right. It's just the presentation was wrong. So
That's funny when you take over a listing from another realtor. Reminds me of a sign. If I can find it, I'll throw it up on YouTube, of a bike shop. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, if there's bike maintenance, it costs $5. If you tried to work on it before, it costs $10 because it's like you messed it up. Like if you take it over from another realtor, maybe you have to work backwards from some expectations, some pricing, and some presentation.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Is now I'm taking this listing over with 90 days on the market, so you have to, and it's priced well. It's just I think the presentation's off. So I think we're going to do a few things here and hopefully list it next week, and we'll see how that goes. We did just list 2 listings this week, Matt and I, and we're going to see how the traffic is on those. These are both great 2-bedroom units along the Orange Line, one in Courthouse and one in Ballston. And we'll kind of assess the traffic to see what this July week is going to be like, and if it is slower than normal.
So with your listings that are under contract and that are closed, some have gone for list price, some have gone above, some have gone below. The buyer's determining, the price, right? The listing agent is, suggesting a price that'll ultimately get the best contract and contract and price. The seller is maybe on board with that, maybe not, but ultimately it's the buyer who's the one, writing the check and putting down the down payment and determining the market value. But there is another person that could maybe determine the market value who's not writing the check, Shawn, and that is the appraiser. Now, the appraiser is Shawn's arch nemesis for those new to the program. But Shawn, I think you were telling me the other day about you had a growing concern with an appraisal issue. Maybe this was a contained issue, or maybe it's prevalent in our area or in the real estate market. So why don't you get into what you're thinking there?
Yeah, so we always say that it's important to hire or use a lender that is local, that knows the market, that kind of thing. And they also have local appraisers, and that is key. I think a bad appraiser can ruin a deal. And that's my problem is, a lot of our deals right now, a lot of the deals I'm doing don't have appraisal contingencies in them because they've been competitive, or they were all cash and they didn't care, right?
Or maybe there was like a desktop appraisal. An automatic appraisal waiver.
And these things have gotten more prevalent where, the lender looks at the sale of the property value, the price, that contract price, and how much that buyer is putting down, And they could say, hey, we got an appraisal waiver. You don't even need an appraisal. And everybody's like, okay, cool. Well, then let's move forward without it. And that alleviates that stress of having an appraiser come out to the property and then give their opinion of the value when there's a buyer that wants it at the value. There's a seller that wants to sell it at that value. There's a bank that's willing to do it at that value. And then you can have an appraiser come in and give their opinion that could be completely wrong. And it could totally screw up the deal. And that's my point is like, listen, Matt and I watch the Arlington market. We watch all of these markets around here, but we're in tune with the Arlington market. And when an appraiser comes and asks me, hey, Shawn, I can't find the comparable sales for this. Can you send me the sales that you got the price, that you came onto the price for? And I'm like, all right, this is a problem. First, he's saying, I'll just give you an idea. It's a 1-bedroom den in Clarendon with views of DC. Okay. It's a special property. These properties are hard to value because it's a view of DC. A view of DC is going to get between $20,000 and $25,000 and $50,000 of value depending on the property. So you have to take that into account. And so when you're comparing it to 1 bedrooms, and this is a 1-bedroom den, and this has always been a problem with the MLS and the delineation of listings. A 1-bedroom and a 1-bedroom den doesn't seem like a lot when you're talking about a single-family house, an extra room. But when you're talking about a condo, it's real value. And that real value has to be delineated, in my opinion, in a different way. It should be 1-bedroom, 1-bedroom den, 2-bedroom, 2-bedroom den. So if you're searching for that type of thing, you can see what's what. But when you're looking at 1-bedrooms, you can't. It's a 1-bedroom, and 1-bedroom dens are also in there. So you have to kind of pull those things out. And when an appraiser tells me I can't find any 1-bedroom comps, I'm like, listen, you have to look for 1-bedroom den comps. You have to search through those to find them and then look at the values. And so I sent an email to this person and I explained the difference between Ballston and Clarendon. And if you don't know the market, then you don't know the market and you shouldn't be doing appraisals here, Yeah. And that's my fear. And so when I wrote this long email, I'm like, here's where I came up with the price. We actually were conservative on the price. This is what I suggested. We came down on that. And if you're having a problem to get to that value, you have a problem with appraising of a property. And the problem is that these appraisers are held to a standard and inside a box. And they say, well, we can only give this value for this amount of this space. We can only give this value for X, and it's such a bull way of doing things. When, in my opinion, and this is what I said in my email, and I'm sorry I'm getting in deep on this, but I like to go back in the building. Every building is different in a condo, right, as far as values. I like to go into that building and I find the exact unit when it's sold, not the exact tier, the tier of that unit, the exact square footage, and find out what that last sale sold for and when it was. That gives me the best comparable. It doesn't matter if it was a year or 2 years ago. That gives me a great idea of value. Then I can say, all right, what did the market do for that time? What does mine have above that this doesn't have? And that gives me a really good close value. Then I'll look at outside comps, and then I'll look at a couple other things inside 1-bedroom units. So there's a lot that goes into pricing, and there's a lot of nuances to appraisals and things that appraisers can't do. And I think they're missing the boat because they're held to such strict guidelines in what they have to do. And it's killing deals and killing values when you have two people that want to purchase and sell a property at a value, Mm-hmm. Why do you have to make it complicated? And then what happens is that appraiser then is sent to the lender, and the lender goes through underwriting. So more people scrutinize that appraisal that probably don't know the real values when an algorithm can kind of give you a basic idea of the value,
Mm-hmm. So curious, what do you think is worse, an appraiser who uses the wrong comps or an appraiser who can't find the comps and asks for the agent's assistance? Because to me, that's like, I would welcome an email like that from the appraiser. They're saying, hey, like, I'm trying to help you out. I just can't figure this out. Can you help me? Like, to me, they're on the same team as me. They're not trying to say, oh yeah, let me pull this Manassas, condo that's similar to the Clarendon condo. No, they're hey, they can't figure it out, then they're reaching out for help.
Please reach out to me. I would rather you reach out to me and say, hey, I'm having trouble here. Can you help me? We're the experts in this area. Yes, we're going to help you. We're going to show you the differences and when these sold and whatever. But Yeah, it's the problem when you just come up with an appraiser, and I've had it many times where they just show you this value. I'm like, wait a second, why are you using this comp across 66? This is one that I had to deal with. That's a completely different value than the one in the subdivision. Why wouldn't you just go back a little further to find that value instead of going across into a subdivision that has a completely different value? So it's important that you stay within the means or that little section of valuation. Like if you would go to Lake Barcroft is like, you can't go in comps outside of Lake Barcroft because Lake Barcroft is its own little thing. So like, these are the things that appraisers need to know. And if you're coming from Maryland or you're coming from a different area and you're used to a different area and you're coming in here, you're not going to know these nuances and you're going to miss the valuations and you're going to piss people off. And the thing is, it's like, my thing is, all right, I understand that banks have, they have skin in the game, right? But if you're putting 20% down, the bank also has insurance. They have so many coverages that cover them. They never lose, right? And so, like, why are you so afraid, or why do these appraisals hold so much weight? I think they need to let go. They need to let appraisers think outside the box a little bit. I mean, comps in the last 3 months, okay, yeah, but like there's value in comps 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, if you have to go there. So go there,
Well, in the world of AI, I don't think appraisers are going to be replaced tomorrow or next year. And there's always intangible things where someone has to go out and, luxury properties, unique land, something that you can touch and feel that an algorithm can't really compute.
Yes.
But there is a large majority, especially in the multifamily sector, Shawn, the condo sector, where once these algorithms get dialed in, I don't think the appraiser is needed in many, many transactions.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying is like in my email, I said I look at algorithms first, and that gives me a basis of an idea of value.
Just if you're in the ballpark.
Yeah, you're in the ballpark. Okay, well, it's in the ballpark. And it was really close to where we priced it. But I said to them, listen, one thing the algorithms don't get is property interior condition and views, right? Like if you have a view, that pushes your price a lot. You have to take that into account. If you're looking at monument views in DC area, that's a lot of value that people don't understand. Or if you're looking at ocean views or whatever it is, wherever you're selling, that's going to give you more value. And that's what that algorithm has to know. And it's getting better and better. And honestly, I use these every time. I look at 3 or 4 different algorithms before I start my comps. That gives me an idea.
Well, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below if you're also wary about appraisers throwing wrenches into transactions. Shawn, let's move on to the next topic. This comes to us from ABC 15 in Arizona in the Valley. Phoenix couple's new home found infested by termites, burst pipes 1 day after closing. Shawn, we're going to get into the whole final walkthrough process. Essentially, in this specific instance that was viral on social media, a young couple bought a property, and it turns out that there were termites everywhere. Now, when they did the final walkthrough, there was like noted tunnels, and they said, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry." Like when they moved the staging furniture, like we're gonna get this fixed. And I guess they said, "Okay, yeah, get it fixed. We're still gonna close on the property." And so they closed, and then the next day there were more termites and more termites and more termites, and then a busted pipe somewhere, and now it's all HE double hockey stick is breaking loose on this house. And so it goes to show what the final walkthrough entails. What are your recourses and your options when it comes to the final walkthrough? Shawn, what are your thoughts on this story, on closing on the property when there's still something significantly outstanding such as termite damage? And then, what are your thoughts when you do the final walkthrough for clients yourself?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, when you get to these deals, you got to think that everybody's got movers set up. Everything's rolling. And to pause this closing can be a complete pain. And,
under what circumstances do you pause a closing? Because, I mean, termites, foundation damage, flooding, fire. Yeah. I mean, these are catastrophic events.
Yeah, I think more catastrophic events, like if you're finding a leak in the property, if you find something like a roof leak or something like that, I'm probably pausing. Hey, listen, let's delay. Let's get this right. There's other ways you can do it. You can ask for a credit, but if there's a lender involved, you got to delay anyways if you're asking for a credit. There's another way in our system that we can do on the walkthrough that says the seller will pay for these items and they're responsible for these items after closing.
Yeah,
it's a
I
contract
hate that
they're
one.
signing.
I hate that one.
They're bound to it. It's tough.
Yeah, but what are you going to sue them?
It's really hard. You have very little recourse, and then you have to sue them to try to get that done. So you have to go on people's words. I've done this in the past. It was with agents that I had really good relationships with, and we got it done. It was fine. What we used to do was pause the thing and get a credit, or have that lender approve that credit. If it's all cash, it's a lot easier. You can do whatever you want. But things happen, and things happen a lot. And once you buy that property, it's your property. Inspectors miss things. Inspectors inflate things. Termite inspections happen. They don't kill bugs right away. There are things that are going to happen that will be missed. And this is, the article goes in by saying, oh, you can hire, after that, you can get a structural engineer. You could get this engineer. You could do this. I mean, that's a lot of people coming through a property, and you have finite times to do this. So you better have them ramped up. And if you're reading this article thinking that this is ordinary to have all of these inspections done, it's not. You'd usually do a one inspection with a home inspector. If there is something technical that has to be done, then you might get a foundation expert or something like that in there.
Yeah, in our area, 7-day home inspection, most people just get an inspector. But, if you want to double check the chimney, if there's a septic tank, which is less common, but, maybe you want to check the septic.
Sure.
If there is something that the inspector flags, in the basement structurally, the contract in Northern Virginia states that, hey, any inspector under the sun, 7 days or whatever you negotiate to, can go in there. It's certainly, not standard, but what is standard? Not all houses are standard, so it's more of a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're feeling uncomfortable about anything in that house after the home inspection, get another expert in there. Get an expert about that certain aspect of it. And what I'll tell you is HVAC technicians are needed because the home inspectors aren't HVAC technicians. They're going to go through and they're going to say, okay, it's not blowing, the temperature variation isn't high enough. We need to, you need this. Or they'll say, oh, this is 12 years old. It's beyond its normal useful life. Mm-hmm. Dude, you're killing me. That thing could last for 25 years, so these are the kind of things that we have to kind of mop up after a home inspector goes in there, because they're hired to find problems. And sometimes these people will inflate the problem or scare the heck out of people when it's very small. Mm-hmm. And I learned something. I'm in a negotiation right now, and it's about a water heater. And the water heater is a specific type of water heater that heats the unit. It heats the condo. And so it's a $4,500 to $5,000 water heater. And I didn't realize that these were in this property. And so it's a unique situation. And so when you say, when you sign off and saying, hey, I'll replace the water heater, you better not sign that until you know what kind of water heater it is, because it could be $1,700 or it could be $4,500. But the key is that the bottom of this water heater was rusted out. And so there's rust on the bottom of it. So it looks like it's failing. But what I'm learning now is that this is just an outside piece of metal, right? That has nothing to do with the integrity of the actual water heater. The tank is inside that outside structure. That outside structure is just a protection. So, a $4,500 fix just because there's a little bit of rust at the bottom of it, you have to look into these more deeply. And my client did and found that Consumer's Choice was like, no, you don't need to replace this. This is just an outer shell of the thing and you're fine. Mm-hmm. So you're negotiating $4,500 and you're like, wait a second. No, this isn't actually wrong. So now you're trying to convince the buyer that no, it's still in working order. It's fine. But their expert told you otherwise. So it's hard to keep deals together when you find these problems and they're not actual problems. And so what do? You have to keep the buyer happy. You have to keep the seller happy. Find a mutual ground.
Our final walkthrough is the worst part of the real estate transaction. You walk through and there's little holes in the wall. I was doing a final walkthrough and I'm the seller, right? I'm the seller's agent, and I had to remove a box. The final walkthrough was 8 a.m. Had to remove a box at 7:30. So I get there at 7:15. the agents already beat me there. Except it's like a mother-daughter agent team, and it's the mother agent, right? Never seen the property before. She walks through horrified because there are holes in the wall. I mean, there is tenant occupied. It's not a perfect property. In our area, usually if it's like under the size of a quarter, you're not really gonna patch and paint and.
If you could fit your finger in it, you should probably fix it.
You should probably fix it.
Yeah.
Okay, but so if it's like less than a quarter, I don't know how big your fingers are, but I my fingers can't stick in that something like that. So I told her that, and she's like, I've been doing this a long time. She's like, I've been doing this 20 years. And I was like, great, then you know how this works. Like, this is normal operating procedures. Sure, if there was like big, mounted gaps in the wall, there'd be an issue. But what the real issue was expectation. The mom agent had never seen the property before until the final walkthrough. The buyers had never seen the property before until the final walkthrough. So how do you know that just wasn't how the property was when you saw it? I mean, sure, if there were large holes, maybe you got to spackle those holes. But they're asking about the carpets and the windows and this vent shouldn't be like this. Like, you waived the inspection. This is an as-is property. We can't be negotiating. So, I ended up throwing them a couple $100 just because, we probably should have patched a couple holes. But, hey, that's a tenant-occupied property, and they ultimately signed the contract, and that's what was most important.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to point out on that. And one thing is, typically we pull out the nails or we leave the nails in the wall. If you're hanging pictures, don't go in and like put your finger with a little bit of spackle and then try to paint it. It looks so much worse, man. You got to paint the whole thing then. Just leave the nail in the wall.
Okay, so what should we have done? So let's say I'm exaggerating and the holes were slightly larger. And let's say you could fit your finger. I mean, there are probably like a couple where you could fit your finger in. What would have been the solution there?
You're going to hire somebody to spackle and then paint the wall.
So we're going to hire someone to spackle, and then the wall hasn't been painted in like 10 years.
Give a credit.
So we're going to paint the wrong color. Like, paint just cures all the time. So even when you do touch-ups, it's not going to look the same.
Right. And that's why I say don't do touch-ups. You have to paint the whole wall. Or if it's it's expectation. Like, if it's a wall that they're going to paint anyways, it's fine. But you can leave it that way. But I think it's expectations. You need to know, you need to have that communication between the buyer's agent and the seller's agent that, hey, listen, there's going to be holes in this wall. We're not going to fix it. It's an as-is property. When you do your final walkthrough, this is what you're going to find.
I like that.
And so then the final walkthrough is simple and easy. And
how much for holes in the wall?
A couple $100.
A couple $100.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the problem is, if you do that, how do you give them the money? Because it has to show on the settlement statement, and any changes to the settlement statement, therefore, it has to go back to the lender. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to do that. So what you could do is say, hey, we'll prepay this to a company, and they'll come out and do it for you. Mm-hmm. That's what I've done in the past. So if I have a problem, prepay the company, boom, it's already set for you. They're coming out Tuesday, and it'll get done.
I think expectations is what I could have done better, because the buyer's agent, who was the daughter, who didn't actually see the property at closing, didn't actually show the buyers the property, had like a buyer's agent show the property. She's like, oh, hey, how'd the tenants leave the property? And I said, like, good for like a four pet occupied, toddler occupied house. They cleaned it up nicely. There's just some holes in the wall, but they were mortified, by what they found. But I think setting expectations and, working with tenant occupied properties, what I could have done is, like, the tenants left paint, and I was like, all right, you're gonna remove the paint? And they go, oh, it's not ours. It's like, whose is it? It's like, oh, it's the current owners. So there's all these like rusted paint cans and, trash in the backyard that I ultimately got rid of. But it reminded me that tenant occupied properties, the tenant is not the problem. Okay. The problem is the problem. And the tenants aren't going to help you solve the problem, but we just need to get past the tenants being the issue. And it's just, how can we figure out a way to get this property ready for the buyer, knowing that the tenant's not going to help you at all?
Yeah, and selling a property with tenants is always tougher. It's always, they don't care. They're not part of the transaction. They're just out. The other thing I want to bring up was when you said the buyer agent didn't show the property. They had somebody else show it. The mom agent never saw the property either. She did the final walkthrough. That is the problem right there. It should be one or two agents doing all of the work, and getting through the whole process. I mean, I'll have people show properties for me, but at some point I want to go see that property. I want to know what's happening. My client should be there at the home inspection. If you're waiving the home inspection, you should be there to see the property. You know, if you're buying something from California and you're coming in here and you haven't seen the property and you're doing it by video, guess what? It's going to look a lot different when you come in there. It's going to feel a lot different. And you can't come blame your agent or you or the other agent because you didn't see the property. But if you're having 3 or 4 different agents in the mix, and none of them have been there for a long time, and none of them have actually done the negotiations, or one of them has, and then it's a mess. You have to be dealing with one agent and making sure you're getting through the process correctly and smoothly. And that's the way I like to do it. If you're dealing with me, my agent could show the property. I'll go look at it. I'll find out what I think the value is, and then we'll come up with the contract and we'll do all the things. But I like to be there for my clients in those instances, so I know what's wrong with the property. I can tell and how to negotiate the home inspection items. If I'm not there, it's a little harder for me. I have to, and a lot of times, and believe me, I have vacations and I'm away at times, so I'll have my agent out there and I'll say, FaceTime me. If there's something happening, just FaceTime me so I can see it, so I can talk to the inspector while you're there, and then I know how to negotiate this thing. Otherwise, you're going to go in flat-footed and not know how to negotiate the items that are on this inspection report. And these inspection reports can be pages and pages long, and you're looking through them and you're like, wow, this looks horrible. But if I was actually there, it wasn't as bad as you think, right? So it's important that you're there and present at every step of the way for your clients.
So you're really spackling and painting these darn holes in the wall.
If they're bigger, yeah, I have to. I actually had this happen where my client, they were like, hey, you don't have to do anything. But there was a hole behind a certain item that was bigger than normal. And my client was like, listen, Shawn, I can't leave it like this. I have to. I don't care if they're going to paint it. I don't want there to be a problem at the final walkthrough. I would rather spend $500 now to get it done rather than delay closing. Everything's screwed up. I don't get my money. I can't close the deal. Dude, just do it in advance. If you think it's a problem, do it, because they're probably going to think it's a problem as well.
Well, I'll have to, have some extreme ownership on that and make sure all my walls have no holes in them whatsoever.
No, and that's the thing is, a lot of people think that, like, when they go to sell a property, oh my gosh, there's a nail hole there. That's normal. It doesn't have to be a pristine, clean wall. There's going to be nail holes. The new owners are going to put things up on the walls. They're probably going to paint. So don't worry about those nails. Just leave the nails in. Don't pull them out. That's my recommendation.
All right, let's move on to our final topic, June 2025 hottest housing markets, coming to us from Realtor.com. And essentially what this is looking at is price growth, and I believe we are also looking at the number of views on Realtor.com as the metric. And spoiler alert, pretty much all of these properties, all of these markets are in the Northeast and the Midwest, the number one spot in hotness rank. Springfield, Massachusetts, and then as we go down the list, Hartford, Rochester, New York, Concord, New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire, more Massachusetts, Oshkosh in Wisconsin, Norwich, New London in Connecticut, Binghamton, Kenosha in Wisconsin, Lancaster in Pennsylvania, rounding out the top 10 and number 11. So clearly there's something going on here where the Sun Belt, the Florida, Austin, the pandemic boom towns, if you will, are definitely not on the top 20 hottest housing market lists. We're looking at days on market. We're looking at median list price, and most of the median list price is anywhere between, Binghamton has $210,000 as their median list price, all the way up to about $600K if you want to be in the capital of New Hampshire, which is Manchester, I believe. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. So, Shawn, what are your thoughts on the Northeast claiming the top 20 hottest housing markets?
It's funny how it changes, right? A couple years ago and last year, we were saying the Sun Belt. Sun Belt is the attractive spot, and this was all pandemic.
I've been told that Concord is actually the capital of New Hampshire, so I am mistaken. Please continue.
Concord, yes. Thanks for clarifying that. But trends change, and they change quickly. And, all the people that bought in the Sun Belt years ago are now finding, hey, it's really hot during the summer. This humidity is horrible. Do I really want to live like this? Are winters really that bad up north? And so, you start thinking life changes. Let's go back up north. So naturally, trends change all the time, and that hurts values as well. So like when the pandemic pushed everybody to, I want to buy a lake house, waterfront, let's go have fun. We're never going to work again. We're going to work from home. Everybody did the same thing. Property values went skyrocketing. And then what happens? Oh man, this isn't as cool as I thought it was. Oh, why did I think that I wanted to live down here with the mosquitoes and the snakes and everything else? Let's sell our property. Then what happens? Everybody wants to sell, and your values start coming down. And so you paid a premium for the property because that's when everybody wanted to be there. And now these values start coming down. So you have to be careful and know the trends. And, the thing is, you never know. We know what sturdy segments of the market in the United States are. There's pretty sturdy areas. Ours is one of them. It has the federal government. We've seen the whole Doge effect and how it had a little bit of effect for a little bit, but then our market kind of recovered and it's fine. Everything's good. So we are insulated here a little bit better than most areas. But you have to look at those and make sure that you're not buying in a flash in the pan. And that's where real estate can really hurt you. And people say, oh, real estate has an increase in value over time and it's pretty consistent. But there are flashes in the pan and you have to be careful on those and know what you're investing in and know that you could get in trouble when you go to sell that property and it's 10 to 20% down on value. And that's where that goes full circle to our first segment of appraisals and why they are still like, you do kind of have to get the value, but at the same time, things can change. And so you have to be careful. And I'm surprised that actually those markets are booming right now. But you did mention a couple of the smaller towns, which I get because the values are lower.
These are definitely small and maybe medium-sized towns, but they're towns, right? I mean, all right, sure, maybe they're cities like Rochester, but they're not the huge metro complexes that, maybe we're used to. And the things that stand out to me are, being properties in the Northeast. It seems like they're mostly houses and maybe duplexes, not too many condos. And then, it's just limited supply. Okay. Yeah. So where are the softest markets? Oftentimes it's the places that have the most amount of supply, like the new construction houses. Like, you go to Texas, you go to Austin, you go to Florida, there's like tons of new construction homes. I believe they mentioned Houston, Sugar Land as large markets with the biggest jump in rankings. But Houston's coming in at, 229 on the list. So there's certainly, it's not a boom town down in Houston. It's mostly these, I don't want to, guess about the job market in some of these cities, but it just comes down to, the scarcity of home supply relative to the limited demand.
Yeah, and that's why our area, we can't build anything else. We have the supply here already, and it's a limited supply all the time, and that's why our values continue to rise because there's always people that want to live in this area. So it's scarcity. When you have a lot of land like Texas does, they can build, and they can build to supplement the need. But then once that need goes away, you've got too many houses to give to people that don't want to live there anymore, or that there's not a need to go to that area in Texas. So why am I spending that much? Yeah, I mean, so jobs are here, scarcity is here. Our market's usually typically good because of that.
Because of the federal government, which, a lot of people took, the fork in the road or took the deferred, retirement, whatever the heck they're calling it. And, maybe that was like a 6-month thing where, that's going to come to rise here in October and November when, people maybe aren't going to be getting their checks anymore once they actually retire. So, I mean, are we in for maybe a rockier fall market because of that?
We could be. And that's the thing is we don't know the full effects of who's lost their job and if they found anything and where they're going to go. And so, markets change quickly. You always have to be aware of this. And it's just like the stock market. The stock market, you think it's up, oh, it's down. What the heck, so just be careful on where you're buying. Buy long-term investments. Know that you want to stay there for a while. Don't try to flip it over in quickly. And even when you're flipping properties, be careful. I mean, I used to flip properties and I got caught. You can get caught very easily. You can lose a lot of money. So make sure you know what you're doing and buy where your heart says to buy, where your family says they want to live, where you want to stay for a long time, and you'll be fine.
I feel like Rochester, New York has been on this list for like 5 years. Since we've been doing the Shawn and Matt show, we keep mentioning Rochester, New York as like it's just one of those cities that falls perfectly into the algorithmic, thing that has spurned this list, and it always pops up. But Rochester, I don't see.
Is Richmond in there?
I don't see Richmond in the top 20. I don't see Louisville in the top 20. Those are usually towns that make it, that make it as well.
Yeah.
But mostly Pennsylvania, some Wisconsin, and of course a lot of New England.
Yeah.
All right, Shawn. Well, that's just going to about do it for another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. If you like this episode, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Comment down below. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.